I'm crying. I'm actually crying.
How are we laughing so much at this much trauma? Oh God! I'm gonna have to edit some of the laughing down. Anyway, after that crack.
Hey, I'm Tom.
And I'm Andy.
And this is On the Node, a podcast about two best mates and one cancer journey. Andy, how are you, mate?
I'm doing all right. I'm much better than I was earlier in the week. So I've been recovering from my third cycle of chemotherapy. And this time I got anemia for the first time ever.
Congratulations.
I wouldn't say so, but it may be a little bit breathless, a bit tired throughout the week, but feeling much better now. So that's what's important. You have just come back from Vietnam.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Vietnam, the country with only one East Coast, I've come to learn.
Only one East Coast, yeah.
5 nights in Da Nang. It was lovely. It was really, really nice with Helen and the kids. Resort. Spent an evening in Hoi An as well, which is pretty beautiful place. Lanterns everywhere. Food was perfect, fresh, and yeah. But good to be back. And good to be podcasting with you again, mate.
Yes, absolutely. We're very happy to be back and recording again.
And on that note, what are we recording about today?
So, if you tuned into our previous episodes,
which obviously everyone did.
Obviously, everyone has only tuned into all of them from the beginning. The last episode was about our reaction to me finding out that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it only makes sense to talk about what our plan was. You know, we've got the diagnosis, you've got lymphoma, what are you going to do about it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're also going to introduce the new On the Node Top 5.
Jeez.
We're going to do this every few weeks with a different topic, but today's the first. So stay tuned.
The inaugural OTN Top 5.
Absolutely, yeah. We're looking forward to it.
Very, very exciting. Okay, so the day you became a man with a plan was how soon after your diagnosis?
Yeah, how many days between being a man with no plan and becoming a man with a plan? That
so that's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, almost a tongue twister. But it was about 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
If that, honestly, it was pretty quick. Like they don't mess around.
Good game of test match cricket, that, time-wise.
It would only be you who brought up sport, but okay, if that makes sense to you, then that works.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a couple of things we have to do. So we have to start off by staging the cancer. So we kind of finished off the story in episode 2 with Hodgkin's lymphoma, but as I'm sure people who've been around cancer before, they come like most cancers, or if not all cancers, are staged, and you don't want a high score, you want a low score.
Like a golf handicap.
Again,
yes.
Love the sports reference, Tom. I'm glad it's relating to you. We're getting there. Yes, so the lower, the better. And if we remember, I also showed my PET CT scan.
And it was yours?
It was actually mine. The image
excellent.
On screen for our YouTube viewers. And if you listened on audio podcast, I'm sorry. But there was an image on YouTube. And that had my PET CT scan on it. And essentially that's half of the story. They can determine how far it's spread through your body. And for me, it was above the diaphragm, which would be indicative of it being stage 2, which is a pretty good score.
So the diaphragm's the cutoff.
Cutoff, yeah. If it's below the diaphragm, then it's stage 3.
Right.
And then what they then have to test for, and we'll get into how exciting that bit was in a minute, is to test if it's stage 4. Now, stage 4 is when it's spread into the bone marrow and is quite progressed as disease. So they have to test that. Do you want to know how they tested for it?
I think I might want to know how they tested for stage 4, yes.
But are you sure you're ready?
Ready as I ever will be, mate.
Wonderful. for anyone who is, if you're the sort of person who tunes into Casualty on a Saturday night or ER in the US or whatever the current medical shows are, I'm not really sure. If you're a bit squeamish, you might not want to listen to this bit. But essentially, you have to do something called a bone marrow biopsy.
Bone marrow biopsy.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
Well, it makes the fine needle biopsy that I did last time. If you remember the big needle to the neck,
I had a lot of questions about that needle.
you did,
Yeah.
and it was terrible. This makes that look like amateur hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So just picture it. You had your surgery yesterday, and you were mellowed out. They gave you general anesthesia. You sort of slowly wake up. You might be a bit groggy, but you're pretty chilled out. The next day, the doctor comes in and says, "Oh, I just need to do this really minor procedure. You could don't worry. You don't have to go anywhere. You could stay in your hospital bed. Just sit there. Okay, that's fine. Sign me up. Let's go on with it. It's only going to take 5 minutes. Beautiful." So you get quite relaxed, and then the doctor in this case was a male hematologist. So he came up to me with local anaesthetic. He injected
Okay.
it just above my hip,
Lovely.
and he injected it above the hip because do you know why?
I don't, but I'm assuming you're about to tell me.
Well, so the biggest concentration of bone marrow in your body is in your pelvis.
Right.
So that's why they go there. So I've got local anaesthetic in my hip.
Okay.
Then he does a minor incision. Don't feel it. You don't feel an
A
incision.
little cut into the hip.
Yeah, in the sort
Yeah.
of in my love handles.
Lovely.
And he would
What a lovely thought.
exactly. So he would cut into my love handle, and then he then started to insert a drill, but not an electric drill, like a hand drill. You remember like
A
tech?
hand drill in the handle.
Yeah, like tech class when you're at school,
Yeah, a
and
bit
they've
of
got one of
DT.
these. One of these like hand winding drills.
Yeah, a bit of
Like
DT. Yeah.
like a medical one of those.
Excellent.
So he's got one of these. He's winding away. You can hear it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So that's nice.
So it's not electric. It's mechanic.
No, it's not like he just walked in. Like right, do you want a shelf putting up? He's got a hand drill. He's going to be very gentle, but you can hear it every grind.
Oh,
A bit like
mate.
coffee grinder, I suppose, for a millennial. You've probably got a coffee grinder around.
Yeah, I think I've got
Anyway, so he's there. He's drilling into my love handle, and
with his handle.
with with his handle. Yeah. Very good.
Okay, go. Keep going. I'm crying. I'm actually crying.
How are we laughing so much at this much trauma? Oh God. Right, after that cracking joke, very good, Tom. We've just had a 4-minute laughing fit over here as we compose ourselves.
Okay. Okay, we have to concentrate.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, audience. We've had a few minutes to compose ourselves. So we'll pick up where we left off. He's got his hand. Oh, God, this is going to be a nightmare.
Okay, done.
Right, so
Okay.
we've just had a moment to compose ourselves, guys, because Tom said something very funny that I won't repeat because it'll set us off again. So he's drilling into my hip,
Yeah.
and it's not very pleasant. I can hear it all. But that's not the worst of it because I can't really feel that. It's like that's like having a filling at the dentist. Like
Yeah.
you're aware of what it's like. And but then he sticks in this massive needle. I assume it's massive. I can't really see. I'm looking away, very far away. And he then does something, and the only way I can describe it is if he pulled both my soul and my spinal cord out through
Oh,
that hole he just drilled. It was the weirdest sensation.
yeah. That sounds grim.
Yeah, pretty grim. So
How long did that procedure last for?
probably about 10 seconds.
Really?
But
So that's
it's,
quick.
well, I guess the drilling bit, but once he was doing the whatever he was doing to pull,
Yeah.
that was about 10 seconds. So, um, yeah, that was pretty horrendous.
Who knew a bone marrow biopsy? I bet you weren't thinking in a few years' time you'd have a good laugh about that.
No, I never really thought about his handle near my handle again. But
Funnily enough. Right, so that procedure's finished.
yes,
So that I assume that comes back pretty quickly and confirms that you are not stage 4.
yes, yeah. It took a few days,
Mm.
which gave us the opportunity to go hunting for doctors, which I guess was the next step.
Doctor hunting. And what's that process like?
Yeah, so we've got audience members all over the world. So
From Bermuda as well, I saw.
Bermuda,
Yeah.
India, Australia.
To be fair, Pune could have been me.
Could have been you. Could have been. I think we got two there, so
Yeah.
maybe. Anyway, we've got audience members all over, so I won't give information that's sort of relevant for all healthcare
Yeah.
systems, but if we both grew up, with the NHS health system available to us in the UK, where you would be sort of assigned a doctor and medical team based on your geography and the speciality that you needed to see. In Hong Kong, we're both very privileged in the sense of we have health insurance through our employer, and with that, you are the insurance company is given a sort of, or they give you as a patient a what they call a panel, so like a selection of doctors that they support through that, and the coverage is essentially different. Like what you can do through them is different based on versus a doctor who is not part of that group. Now, the doctor who I met in that hospital where I got diagnosed and who
Mm.
kindly drilled into my hip, he unfortunately wasn't part of that panel, which
Right.
meant we had to find somebody else essentially.
Okay.
And that process, uh, yeah, well, we kind of started it off by getting a second opinion.
Mm.
So a good friend of ours did some research on his own behalf to help us, which was really kind
So
of
it was
him.
for you on his. He
Yeah,
did it himself for you.
yeah. So
That's really
he,
kind.
yeah, it was amazing.
Big shout out.
Absolutely a massive shout out. And he shared the details of somebody who was the lead, allegedly the leading expert in Hong
Mm.
Kong in hematology and oncology.
Mm.
So we booked an appointment with this doctor for that second opinion and get his recommendation.
Mm.
Uh, and then he gave us a treatment plan, but unfortunately, he also wasn't part of
Yeah.
this panel. So we had to then find a doctor who featured as part of the panel who would also make a recommendation that aligned with this sort of leading expert doctor that we've been referred to.
Got it. And then though I guess the remaining doctors that you then look for, did you start with kind of geographic distance to where you lived?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay,
there were
fine.
like three or four doctors on the panel, I think. Maybe there were more. I can't really remember.
And that panel is defined by the policy, right?
Yeah, it's defined by the insurance
Okay,
company.
got it.
Yeah,
So you know the names.
they give you a list. Yeah,
Okay,
there's a
got it.
list, and yeah, we booked appointments at two or three of them, but essentially the appointments we had just happened that the one who was closest to home
Yeah.
was also the first one we visited, and he also made that recommendation that aligned with this other doctor, and yeah, that doctor's still my doctor today. So I still see him like yesterday.
Amazing.
So yeah, and he sort of took me all through my treatment that first time around.
Good stuff. So I think that's a good segue into the segment round, as it were, OTN top five.
Absolutely.
So obviously handles and love handles notwithstanding, top five worst experiences or procedures that you had to go through to arrive at the diagnosis, with five being the most pleasant, as it were, and one being the least pleasant. Starting with five.
Yeah, so I would say blood tests.
Easy work.
Easy work, but I do have a vasovagal response, so I have to lay back. But I have them so often, pretty used to it.
Four.
Is surprisingly, or maybe surprising to you, surgical biopsy.
And that was when they took a chunk out of your neck.
Yeah, big scar, but they put me under general anaesthetic. You don't really experience it.
Right. Mitigating circumstances in that
Correct.
case. Number three.
PET CT scans.
Right.
Have to have them quite often, every 6 months, every year. But so essentially you're just laying down for half an hour, but you're laying down with your arms above your head.
Not great.
Very uncomfortable, not pleasant. Don't recommend it if you can avoid them.
Number two.
Oh, we've talked about it already today, but fine needle biopsy, needle to the neck, don't recommend.
And I have a feeling that number one is pretty self-evident by the description today, but why don't you declare the winner?
Well, the winner is obviously the bone marrow biopsy.
Excellent.
That was just
Congratulations to the bone marrow biopsy.
yeah. Congratulations. I don't think I have a trophy. I don't think you deserve a trophy.
I'm sure we could source one.
I don't know if you want to repurpose a cricket trophy or not.
Well, I've got three.
Oh, loads. You've been playing for cricket for 20 years and you've only got three.
Well, that's three since I've been in Hong Kong.
Oh,
maybe.
right. Okay, fine. I'll let you off.
Right, okay, top five segment of the week, OTN top five. We'll be back at some point in the future with another top five. So, you've concluded your doctor, he's still your doctor to this day, which is great. And we'll talk about more of that at some point in the future. What was the treatment plan?
Yeah, good question. So, generally speaking, blood cancers, I think, as a group, but obviously my experiences with lymphomas and therefore Hodgkin's and then the Hodgkin's lymphoma are not treated surgically. So that surgical biopsy I had, even though people might describe it as cutting a bit of the tumor out, that's not treating it. That is purely for diagnosis. The treatment for Hodgkin's is primarily done through chemotherapy, and there's different sort of cocktails of drugs, is the way I describe them, that you can go through as part of your treatment. For most cases, that I'm sure there are people who go through something slightly different.
Cool. And what was your cocktail, as it were? Not a nice Aperol spritz.
It was not an Aperol Spritz, sadly, although one of them looked a bit like it, but we'll
Really?
talk about that next time.
Bit red.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll be part of episode 5. And but the primary for most people they go through a cocktail of drugs called ABVD. I cannot remember the scientific names for any of those drugs, so I'll put them on screen, everyone, if you're really curious. But essentially, ABVD is what most people do. But I had to do this lung function test,
Yeah.
and that lung function test, as part of my sort of preparation for treatment, showed something that wasn't optimal. And so the recommendation for me was to do something called AAVD.
Right.
So essentially, they take the B out,
Yeah.
which is I think
Remix.
called the remix, the remixed cocktail of drugs. They take this drug called bleomycin.
Very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's the only one I remember. And I think that has a quite high chance of causing lung damage.
Right.
So because they already had this sort of anomaly in my lung, therefore I was recommended to have this other treatment, which swaps out the bleomycin.
With something beginning with A.
Yeah, which is called Adcetris.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
So
only
you
one I
remember
know.
two?
Yeah, but they're on
Okay,
different cocktails. So
excellent. And anything kind of that you learn about how it would be injected into your body at that point?
yeah, great question actually. So when you receive chemotherapy, the drugs are sort of super toxic to
Mm,
the body.
mm,
And I thought in my head that basically someone would just stick a cannula into my hand,
mm.
like when they gave me general anesthetic or whatever, or antibiotics before, and they would just do that every couple of weeks, and they'd sit me there, and I'd receive it. But the blood flow isn't strong enough in your hand,
Right.
in those veins in your hand or in your wrist.
Even mine.
Even yours, mate. I know
Joking.
you. You know you.
That was a joke.
I know he likes to show off his arms whenever he can. But no, even yours, they wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
So they have to find a vein that has high blood flow, and they generally install kind of different forms of central line, I think they're called.
Okay.
And I was kind of offered two in Hong Kong. I think in the UK and US they offer like a different option, but that wasn't available to me. So I was either offered what they call a PICC line, so PICC.
Hmm.
Um, Again, this isn't. I didn't end up having this. So I'm not too familiar on it, but basically, it's this. It's a line that's going to stick out of your arm
Bicep.
here.
Right.
Yeah, so like in your elbow. I think the line goes into your sort of elbow joint.
Mm.
Um, but my doctor didn't recommend that. His view was that the maintenance on it and the risk of infection from it is a little bit higher.
Mm.
So I had, and I have again, my second one, a what's called a Hickman catheter. Now this is where they, I have basically this tube coming out of my chest. I'll probably put a medical diagram of one
Yeah.
rather than me flashing my abs to the whole
That's a
audience.
shame. The audience are missing out.
Well, yeah, they can tune in for a future body reveal or something. I don't know if that's something we'll ever get onto, but
Yeah.
the Hickman catheter essentially kind of goes into my chest and then into a vein that's in my neck. I
Okay.
think it's the jugular vein, which has very high blood flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do that so that essentially the blood dilutes the drugs so that it doesn't cause as much damage to your veins themselves.
Okay.
I think doctors can tune in on the comments and correct me, but that's my understanding.
Got it. And so you've finalized AAVD, you finalized the Hickman. Was there anything else to finalize? The timing, perhaps?
Yes, that's a really good question actually, and I think it's if people remember, it was around December 2022. This was all happening,
Yeah.
and we're now encroaching on the holiday period, the festive period, and it's not really great news to hear that you're going to spend the next 6 months feeling less than good, and I really needed a bit of a morale boost. You know,
Mm.
mentally, I needed a morale boost before we kind of kicked things all off. So when we met my doctor, he wanted to book us in, or book me in, on Christmas Eve and kind of have the Hickman catheter installed and start my chemo on Christmas Day. And as you can
Merry
imagine,
Christmas.
Merry
Yeah.
effing
Yeah.
Christmas. Really was not excited for that. So we asked him, and I kind of always loved this anecdote about my doctor because it showed how much he cared and how much urgency he placed on treatment, and he still does this today. Um, but I asked him, hey, can we please just have Christmas? Like,
Mm.
can I just have one, like Christmas Day? I don't mind going in on the 26th for Boxing Day, but I really just want Christmas Day
Mm.
just to be normal. And he sort of looked up. I don't have prop glasses with me, but he looked up at me like, after writing his notes, just through the top of his glasses, and he goes, "Well, you look like sensible people." Which
Little does he know.
little does he know, I think we're pretty sensible. But he was obviously having met us for the first time, having his doubts, And but yeah, so he gave us that sort of judgmental comment, but
Excellent.
he facilitated me starting on the 27th, so I got to have
Amazing.
Christmas with friends, which was really nice.
Excellent. I think that's probably a good place to stop because I think next episode we're going to talk about that first cycle, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Next time we're going to talk about the first cycle. We'll talk you through how I was feeling, the kind of different steps that you have to go through, preparation, etc. So yeah, that's the next one.
Amazing. Really looking forward to that, mate. Before we sign off, we're now on socials. So anyone who has Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, search On the Node podcast. You'll find us there. Like, subscribe, share, comment, do whatever you want to do. And for the time being, I'm Tom.
And I'm Andy.
And that was On the Node.